the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. And today I am lucky enough to be joined by MJ Fievre. MJ, could you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Absolutely. My name is MJ Fievre. I'm originally from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I moved to the United States when I was 21. My career started in fiction. I wrote adventure stories for young adults. Then I became interested in poetry and published a poetry collection, Happy Okay. Nowadays, however, I'm working on self-empowerment books for young adults. I'm the author of Badass Black Girl, the series.
Badass Black Girl. What a great title. I am in love with that. It's like hashtag Badass Black Girl. Like I can totally see all the places where it's like shines.
The book has known a great success. It's been fun just meeting the kids and talking about what it takes to be a Black girl, a successful Black girl in the world today.
Without getting into politics, what would you say is the most important thing about being a successful Black girl?
Well, I have to preface this by saying that growing up, I was always interested in self-empowerment books because I just wanted to be a successful person. And I never felt that I was the audience for those books because I was dealing with issues that were not addressed. In Port-au-Prince, where I'm from, there were many issues related to colorism and classism, and those books did not necessarily address the fact that I was Black and that the world very often saw me as other or as less than. So it was important for me to write this series. And to answer your question, I think that there's a lot of insecurities that young Black girls deal with that are not necessarily addressed by parents, by most books that they read. So I wanted to be very specific and talk a little bit about some of the struggles that we have every day, whether it's because there's a perception that we're the angry black girl, Black woman, whether it's in the perception that we might not be as qualified to do certain jobs as other people. I wanted to be able to talk about those things. Of course, in addition to talking about the struggles, I talk about how powerful it is to be Black, the richness of our culture, of our history, and the fact that we understand the value of the village, right? Working with our community and building each other up. So I talk about all those aspects of the Black life in the book. And in the series, I must say, because there's also empowered Black girl and resilient Black girl.
I am in love with this. I could totally see how poetry is affected by your experiences. So you mentioned that you've written a lot of poetry. I can, poetry takes a lot of emotions. And so as we think about when we tap into those emotions, those struggles, those insecurities that you mentioned, the concreteness of writing a series like Badass Black Girl can stem from the realizations that you had when you were creating poetry.
For sure. I mean, my poetry collection is all about acceptance, self-acceptance, and self-awareness. Happy Okay, which is the title of the book, explores the difficulties of depression, not just on the person who's actually suffering from depression, but on those who surround her, the people who care for her, the people who want to have her in their lives. So the main character, Paloma, has to become self-aware. She has to understand her depression, how to deal with it, and also the toll that it's taking on her own life and on the lives of others. And I think that writing this poetry book, I was well on my way to realizing that people need that message, this idea that if you don't know yourself, it's really difficult for you to break barriers. And spending time with yourself 24/7 doesn't mean that you know who you are. Um, it doesn't mean that you've taken enough time to think about your personal mission in life, the things that you really like, the things that you don't like, the things that you've learned to accept, those voices that are creating chaos in your head. Which one is yours? Which one is a society? Which one is your mom who made a simple comment when you were 5 about what she thought you should embrace as a career? So it's whether I write poetry or nonfiction, self-empowerment books, it's all about getting to know yourself so that you can create a life where you experience joy as much as possible.
Well, joy. I love talking about joy. Let me tell you, I have gone on I'm not going to say it's a roller coaster. I've gone on a journey with my sister. We started a business together, and every fourth week we explore joy in our lives. So it's when you say, I want to focus on joy, people look at you like life is too busy for joy. But you know what? Without joy, there's no reward. And so being able to communicate and connect, that in itself is a joy. So I'm really glad that you've mentioned this. And I love that. Said that before. Love the topic. Love the topic. So tell me about your experience as a writer with the publishing industry.
Well, I'm in a very unusual situation where in the publisher I write for, I also work for as an editor. So I got to know the publishing world pretty well. I work for Mango Publishing. All my books are published by Mango. So they first hired me as an editor, and I learned about what it takes to present a good proposal and what publishers are looking at. And I was able to write my own proposal and surprise everyone and said, well, today I'm presenting an author that you're very familiar with. And I presented Happy Okay, my poetry collection. We're very analytics driven. So I was able to work with a team of researchers and analysts, statisticians. They helped me kind of gather the data to make sure that the book was going to be successful. And I can say that thanks to their help, it was as successful as you would expect a poetry book written by someone who doesn't have any other poetry work out there would do. So it did pretty well. And then I stayed on board as an in-house writer to create the Badass Black Girl series. And now that I have 3 books in this series, and I've been receiving so many requests from parents about the boys, I paired up with a fabulous editor at Mango, and we're having a series for boys. The first book, Black and Confident, is going to be available soon. So I've learned a lot about the publishing world. I mean, things that I wish I knew at the start of my career, what they really look at on the proposal, the importance of really knowing your audience, the importance of looking into the market, even if you don't have any analytical experience, getting to know your market using the information that you do have at hand. So it's been a great journey, and I'm always happy to talk to writers about how to improve their proposals, how to improve the first few pages that they're sending out, how to show a publisher that they understand what it's going to take for a book to do well.
I'm very joyful to switch into a topic of marketing because I am fascinated. So many writers, we spend so much time developing our craft as a writer, but it's difficult to go to that next level without having a connection to your audience, without understanding the analytics. So let's talk about analytics a second. If I'm going to be writing a self-improvement book, what type of analytics am I looking for if I'm going to go out on my own to try to find those?
So I think it's something that is very important for us to think from the get-go is how we're going to create, how we're going to touch the audience. Because in the ideal situation, when we talk about marketing, the publisher is doing its part and you're doing your part as a writer. So the first question is, are you being authentic? Meaning, if you are writing a book, let's say about growing flowers, are you actually growing flowers at home? Are you telling people about growing flowers? Are people reacting to the way that you talk about growing flowers? So we need to remember that publishing has changed a lot in the past few years. It used to be that the brick and mortar bookstores would decide what books are going to be read during a season. So you went there, you looked at the display, and right away you were attracted to a specific book because it was strategically placed on the shelf. So now that publishing has changed, mostly because everyone is buying books online, people get more agency in terms of what they're reading, right? There's an algorithm that tells you, oh, you like this book, what about this book? And it's personalized, and you're finding books that you would never have found before that are of interest to you because the system is finding similar titles. So the expectation now is that yes, books are being bought online, but everyone is spending time on the internet and they want to get to know you as a writer. They want to be able to say, oh, Alison wrote a book. Let's see what Alison is blogging about today. Or maybe she has a podcast, and they want that interaction. So the work that we do as writers has become very important because it's no longer Barnes and Noble putting your book on display or having just reviews here and there, although those remain important. It's being seen as a person that people can follow so that they really understand your book and they create a relationship. People want relationships with their authors. So when thinking about marketing, you really need to think about how you're going to reach those people. Your publisher cannot reach them for you. The author has to become much more active in that outreach, and that's what helps the analytics. It's what you're creating, that platform that you're creating for yourself.
Very well said. Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about productivity. How do you stay productive? What's your strategy to move through the day as a writer and to be productive?
So there are a few techniques that I've learned throughout the years because I've been doing this for such a long time. I started writing when I was 13, published my first book when I was 16, and it was before the internet was so helpful in connecting you with other writers and just having that community. I spent a lot of time on my own writing. Yes, there was a community in Haiti. We gathered from time to time, but it wasn't as intense as it can be nowadays. So I had to find ways to be productive that did not include other people telling me what they were doing to remain productive. So the first thing I've learned is that you need to put some writing time in your calendar. The big mistake that many people do, they put all their meetings for work, and they forget to put time that they need for things like writing or exercising or even lunch. So many people just skip lunch. So I remain productive. I remain productive by adding writing time on my calendar. So I know that from 8 to 10 on Monday, I'm going to be writing. On Tuesday, it might be 7 to 8. I look at it realistically, and I plan time. The second way is to make sure that you reduce interruptions. So when I write, my phone is on silent. I close all the windows. Maybe on the computer, maybe I keep one because there might be some research involved. I might want to check a word. I also use a timer to make sure that from time to time my eyes can see the timer, to remind me that I'm supposed to remain on task. And speaking of um, interruptions, you want to make sure that you maximize your time. One thing that was really life-changing for me was the ability to manage my email. Because what do we do instead of writing when we're procrastinating? We're checking email, we're overwhelmed, there's no time to write. You plan to write for an hour, but then you realize you have 1,000 emails, so you write for 45 minutes. So I had to find a solution for emails, and I did. And it's simple things like going to your Gmail and creating a filter so that certain messages go to certain folders without you having to even see them in your mailbox until you're ready. It's really easy. There are so many guides if you don't know how to deal with Gmail, or starting to block certain addresses. I took about an hour to unsubscribe to anything that was of no interest to me. But some of those companies find sneaky ways, and you end up not being unsubscribed. So I started blocking many of those addresses. And now when I look at my email in the morning, it's 1/10 of what it used to be. So it's time that I'm saving, and that time I can dedicate to writing. So I think those three that I listed, making sure you have some dedicated time, you avoid interruptions, and you create more time for yourself, I think they are good starting points. There are so many others that I could mention in terms of how you organize your writing and making a to-do list for your writing and stuff like that. But those three were so important for me, staying focused.
You said one thing that I'm going to bring up real quickly, and then we're going to go ahead and find out how people can get in touch with you. You said you published your first book at age 16. Still in Haiti at the time.
Yes.
Did you find a publisher in Haiti, or did you find a publisher somewhere else?
So Haiti in the 90s was really different than it is now. You had two choices. You could either go to the local publisher, or you could wait until you got an answer from Europe, right? Because the dream was to be published in France, because French is one of the languages in Haiti, and the utmost recognition came from Europe, right? But I wanted to do things differently. So I think I'm one of the first writers who decided, you know what, I don't need a publishing house. I'm going to go and print my book myself. So I hired an editor. I hired a editor, copy editor, designer, and I did the work. It took a year to edit this book. It was a lot of work because I wanted something that I could be proud of. And then I paid a printer. I say I, but of course I have to go beg my parents to believe in my dreams, right? And they did. After a lot of crying and begging, they invested in me. So I was self-publishing, which has become so easy these days in the United States. But I also got experience being published traditionally, because after my first book was a real success, as I said, I wanted to make sure it was high quality. So I really did the work. I did get a contract with Hachette Deschamps, which was Hachette Edition was a partnership between Hachette in Europe and La Maison des Champs in Haiti. So I got the best of both worlds working with Hachette Deschamps, and I became traditionally published. But I mean, Haiti was so different back then. I understood how to sell books. I understood how to market a book. I was young, yes, but I had a good grasp of marketing, because I understood that a book was a product and that you had to approach it the same way you would, let's say, sell electronics, right? You had to find ways to make it attractive. So it all worked out pretty well. And yeah, my career started very early.
Well, MJ Fievre, I am beyond impressed at your grasp for the book industry. Thank you so much for sharing the information. How can people get in touch with you?
They can visit my website, badassblackgirl.com. I'm also on Instagram. My handle is @badassblackgirlbooks. And I'm always happy to answer emails, to get in touch with people, have conversations. So don't hesitate to contact me. I just love talking about writing. It's always been my dream to become a full-time writer where my entire life revolves around writing. And I'm just grateful that it happened. And I'm very grateful to you, Alison, for inviting me on your podcast so that we could talk about what I do with books.
Well, I can talk about writing 24/7. So it's a very cautious subject you need to embrace. But right now, you might not be as excited because we're going to switch to our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
As ready as can be.
What is your favorite type of ice cream?
Strawberry.
And if you were going to be ice cream, what would it be?
Probably coconut.
Coconut. Now I got to ask, why coconut?
I mean, I'm from the Caribbean, and avocados, coconuts, all those things. Yeah. They have a special place in my heart.
All right. Last question. Cup or cone?
Oh, cone. For sure.
You put fresh strawberries on top of the strawberries?
Yeah, that. I mean, I'll have strawberry ice cream in different forms. Big chunk of strawberries, no chunk at all. I mean, I'm a big strawberry fan.
Well, MJ Fievre, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon.
You all have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. Alison out. Boo! That was awesome.
Thank you so much. I had fun. Thank you.
I love your accent. I could listen to it all day long. And, and it's also melodic. So you have this sort of melodic, maybe that's the Caribbean influence in it.
Yeah, probably. But thank you. When I moved here, I kept waiting for the accent to go away. And then I realized it's never going to go away because I'm surrounded by people from the Caribbean. So it's here to stay for sure.
Born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, MJ Fievre moved to the United States in 2002. She currently writes from Orlando, Florida. MJ's publishing career began as a teenager in Haiti. At 19 years old, she signed her first book contract with Hachette Deschamps in Haiti for the publication of a young adult book. Since then, MJ has authored 9 books in French that are widely read in Europe and the French Antilles. In 2013, one more book released MJ's first children's book, I Am Writing, written in 3 languages, English, French, and Haitian Creole. In 2015, Beating Windward Press released MJ's memoir, A Sky, the Color of Chaos, about her childhood in Haiti during the brutal regime, Jean Bertrand Aristide. She is currently the author of the Badass Black Girl series. She helps others write their way through trauma, building community, and creating social change. MJ is available for book club meetings, podcasts, presentations, interviews, and other author events. Visit her on the web at badassblackgirl.com. Learn, network, and grow at the 20th Annual Florida Writers Conference, October 14th through 17th, 2021. The Florida Writer Youth Conference, October 16th, 2021. Supercharge your writing career at the 20th Annual Florida Writers Conference. Until next time.